Hello there, and welcome to this edition of the podcast. Today, we are joined once more by Harshinii and we are going to talk about two stories from today's edition of Watson's Daily. Now, I have to say, initially, for those of you out there who do get Watson's Daily and you have been paying attention to the emojis that I use in the email that I sent out, I'm really sorry. Today I messed up because I sent the wrong ones. But don't worry, tomorrow we'll be back on it again. So apologies for the emoji watchers among you. Right, so that's apologies apart. Harshinii, what would you like to talk about today?
So today's article that I picked out is very interesting. So it's a Financial Times article. It talks about how yesterday Hermes overtook LVMH as the world's most valuable luxury company. So I'll tell you a little bit more about the story, and then I'll talk about why I found it interesting. So the story goes is the quarter performance results came out, and it was just very disappointing for LVMH. They had their sales, especially in the fashion and leather goods, really fall off, like I think about 5%, and their performance has just been really taking a dip for the past few months. So this is really bad for LVMH, but of course, it's great news for Hermes. They're at the top spot, and I think it's just really amazing how this has happened. So I want to move on to what I think is really fascinating about this, and then I'll talk about what the future effect for Hermes and LVMH will be moving on.
Okay.
So firstly, it's so interesting because it is an amazing achievement. Like at this point of time, to see such remarkable growth and such a story come out, especially in the luxury center, it's just really interesting. And it's a bit surprising because as I will explain a little bit, it's nice how similar yet different the companies are. So of course, they're great market players in the luxury and fashion industry, but they have very different company structures. So when you talk about Hermes, they are a single brand company, and they're mostly famous for their Birkins and their Kelly bags and just having such a good position in the market. And then you move on to LVMH. It's the parent company, so it's sort of the main company, and then it owns several other brands. And then these brands are literally the most powerful, the most popular brands. So just to name a few, you've got Louis Vuitton, then you've got Dior, you've got Marc Jacobs, you've got Fendi, and this is, of course, just in the fashion and leather goods part of it. And then it's got many other divisions as well. So LVMH, as you can see, it's just such a large company. It's got great brands. And then to see Hermes overtake LVMH in its performance, it's just amazing. So how did Hermes do this? So it was really nice to sort of see why and what are the reasons that could have gone behind this great performance and the overtaking. So one of the things that I really thought and found in the article is their customer base is just so loyal. Obviously, when you're talking about Hermes, you're talking about really high upper end customer market. So you're talking about those people who have got the higher financial capacity, and they've been with Hermes for a long period of time, because with luxury brands, it's just generally the market reputation that collects over such a large period of time. So they have the high-end pricing. They've got their customer base really being loyal. And what I mean by loyalty is the customers, they generally really wait for years on the wait list for getting their products. So it just really shows the kind of passion and loyalty they have to this brand. Then Hermes has done a really good job in maintaining its high exclusivity, and with the prices, we know it's like 8,000 and above for bags, and they've just been the way they have been for a long time. And then they have controlled production, which obviously helps them manage their demand and prices. And they've always been just about maintaining that type of exclusivity. And then it turns out they've done really great about it. So these are a few reasons why I thought Hermes was different from LVMH and why this could have happened. So that part is really interesting. And then now it's very nice to see what's going to happen going into the future. So with the future aspect of it, I feel like one of the things that will really affect the companies is the tariffs. Again, it's important to talk about the tariffs over here because it's America is one of the biggest markets for, like one of the markets for LVMH and Hermes. In fact, it's a bit more for LVMH than Hermes. So what will happen is right now EU's got the 10% tariff for the 90 days, but then again, it's going to go up to about 20%. And then we don't really know what happens from there. So this is going to affect the prices of the goods that are being imported into America. and that means it'll drive up the prices. Will that affect the demand in America? Will the future sales be affected? Does this mean more bad news for LVMH? And does it really affect Hermes or not? So it's interesting when you see what the analysts say about the effect it will have on Hermes as compared to LVMH. So Hermes, surprisingly, has had such a good position in the market for so long that they've maintained their profitability for a large period of time. This means that it's less likely to be affected by the tariffs because they could still maintain their prices because it's always on that upper end. So they don't really have to increase their prices to offset the effect of the tariffs on their profits because they generally have that level of profits to fall back on. So it's really interesting to see that analysts think Hermes might not be affected by these tariffs just because of their profitability for such a long period of time. But obviously that's not as true for LVMH. So does this mean that we will see increase in prices of these products? Will that mean lesser sales? It'll be very interesting to see what are the market moves that LVMH comes up with. How are they planning to tackle this demand? Are they going to really look at their prices? Are they going to try to diversify a little bit into products? We really don't know how it will be. So that's the interesting part, is to see what the reaction LVMH will have. But again, another aspect that the tariffs will affect is just the markets that both the companies can go into, because they generally have a similar market base. So they've got America, they've got EU markets, they've got Asia markets, really strong for both of them. So does this mean that maybe LVMH will try to focus a little bit more on their sales in the Asian market, try to drive up the demand in that market, and the EU market that already has a great demand as well? And then, of course, you've got Middle Eastern markets as well. They have a great capacity for Hermes. So does this mean Hermes is going to be able to shift their markets as well? So it's just going to see how the companies strategize and what are the effects of all of this and how it all just rolls out. So yeah, it was really interesting to see this takeover that happened. It was really surprising and nice to know. It's a great achievement. And just to understand what the future implications would be of the story was really nice. But yeah, that's what I thought. But what do you think about this?
Yeah, no, I mean, loads of interesting points, and totally agree with your, what you say about how impressive this feat is, for a single brand to overtake this bunch of not normal brands, so I think this is a fantastic achievement on their part. In terms of future implications, it seems to me that luxury goods companies, probably if you were looking maybe at the end of last year, beginning of this, you saw a real trend of these companies saying that they were going to put more effort into the US market, because the Chinese market, which they've relied on for so long, has been faltering. So not only have you had less demand, within China itself, but there have been fewer, Chinese tourists going around the world and buying all this luxury stuff. But America has been doing pretty well. So I think that the tariffs are going to affect LVMH more than than Hermes. Will they slow down their expansion in America? I mean, if I was running it, obviously I'm not. Otherwise, I'd be like Europe's richest man. But if I was running LVMH, I'd be thinking, is it maybe better to just postpone what we were going to do? Wait until the dust settles, wait till it calms down, and then, maybe go in. Whereas I would have thought that Hermes surely should expand more. Perhaps if it was going to go expand a bit more in America, is maybe not do that and perhaps do Middle East instead. Because when you think of the prices of Hermes, I mean, I have to admit, I only have one product from Hermes over the years, and I have some ties from there, and that was because, in my defence, that was because it was basically the uniform that I had to wear for when I was, stockbroking. It was like anyway, it doesn't matter, but I've the only thing I've ever bought from there is a tie, and just to give people an idea of the price, if you think of let's say an item of clothing that you would like to buy, and you think of the upper end of what you'd be prepared to pay, right? You think of that number, put another zero on the end of it, and you've probably got roughly the price it would be if you went to Hermes to buy that thing, right? And so it really is for people that really money is no problem. It's not, I would say, I would actually go as far as saying it's not aspirational. Whereas people sort of look to spend on certain brands, think, oh, if I do really well, I'll buy this thing or that thing. I mean, maybe handbags maybe a bit different. I don't know, but I think generally it's more a case of you've got so much money that it's just not a problem at all, and you quite like going in there because you're only going to be with people that that are also in the same position. It's a bit, I guess, it's a bit like what some people feel, which is why they go to Waitrose to shop, right, instead of Aldi, because they'll perhaps feel that they are in the same kind of, an atmosphere with the same their kind of people. But anyway, I would have thought, if anything, maybe Hermes de-emphasize or postpone what they were going to do in America and perhaps redouble their efforts in the Middle East. And actually, you would be an expert in this, wouldn't you? Because you're actually there at the moment, aren't you?
Yeah, so I'm in Dubai at the moment. I'm here for the Easter holidays. And I can say I was really surprised to see why the market share for Hermes in Middle East is not higher than what I saw on the graphs, because
Yeah.
I would say every second person generally does own Hermes. I think it's a very popular brand amongst most communities. A lot of Arabs, Indians, you've got Asians here. So it's just such an amazing market. And Dubai specifically, it is
Yeah.
like a London of the Europe. It's like that. It's good in markets. It's got great shopping complexes. Like people do come here to shop, and it is
Mm-hmm.
those high-end brands. So I'm surprised as to why this is not bigger than it was, but definitely I feel like Middle East is a great venture spot for both of these companies, and I feel like that might be coming for sure.
Yeah, no, fair enough. And if anyone from Hermes is, obviously listening or watching this or watching this, obviously, maybe Harshini, you could
Yeah,
do sort of be responsible for expanding the franchise, perhaps over there,
100%.
because
I've got
yeah,
great tips coming.
there you go, you heard it here. Brilliant. So we'll go from
Yeah.
Hermes to something slightly more ordinary, and that is the article that I saw today. This was from the Times, and this is all about. So there seems to be an emerging trend where influencers are actually talking about cutting out so because of the tariffs, price is going to go up in America, and therefore these influencers are saying, well, why don't you cut out the middleman and buy your stuff directly from the Chinese factories that are making it? That way you can get it for much cheaper. You don't have the markup, and I presume that it's so cheap that even if you get charged on the postage because that loophole, that de minimis thing, that's closed,
Mm.
you're going to pay something. But so they were advising people to do this, and it seems to be very popular. I mean, you said you've seen that, haven't you?
I think definitely, like before I saw it on the news articles, it was a trend, especially across social media. So me more on Instagram Reels, but definitely on TikTok Reels as well. It is shaping what the consumer trust would look like, consumer interest would look like, especially for younger students and younger people. We do see a lot of these brands and see a lot of these products and everything online. So that is definitely a big wave of thought right now for sure.
I mean, because I think that I reckon that many well, I suppose many people have, and probably I'd say younger people have become more used to buying, this sort of gratification of buying something that's cheap and that looks good, that looks good enough, and the whole fast fashion thing has evolved because of people's need to have stuff. And I think that this, what is going on now with the influencers talking about that go straight to the Chinese factories and stuff, that's actually that's actually feeding that need to have stuff. Because the problem is that goods that are not made in America are going to be more expensive than what they were. And so, in a way, I suppose consumers are going to have to kind of go cold turkey from not having stuff, maybe making their stuff last longer. But in the interim period, maybe they're going to try to do this kind of, buy this stuff which may or may not be genuine. And that's a risk you take. But yeah, I mean, that's going to be an interim solution, but I don't know how that would work out, long term. But I mean, I suppose the main kind of conclusion from this is that that the consumers are seeing that and assuming that prices are going to go up. They're going to have to change their behavior, whether that is, trying to cut out the middleman or to just spend less. Either of which options are not good for the US economy, because you want to be spending money in the economy rather than trying to trying to go around it. But yeah, what do you think about that?
I think you're absolutely right. It's definitely more of a retaliatory thing than um, actually doing what needs to be done. It's sort of just a reaction as to people just trying to find ways to get around what is happening currently.
Mm,
And I feel like this is sort of a response to that. I
yeah.
feel like it'll really shape the consumer trust, these things that are happening. Like you said earlier, it's just trusting what's behind that screen. So we really don't know who are
Mm,
these manufacturers, what is the validity of what they're saying, is it true, is it not, what are the reaction of these brands like Nike and all of these other brands that are going to come in, what are these companies going to comment on this matter. It's
mm,
just really interesting to see. And then, like you said, the biggest factor is just the risk. What is the
mm.
risk of buying these products via TikTok or via Reels or anything? And then what are the benefits to these platforms and just so on. There's just so much that could pull from this situation.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that struck me about this was, although with branded goods you've got your which are identifiable because of the like with Nike, the swoosh, or whatever the very unique brands that there are. I do remember I have seen a few ads for companies that say, our stuff is unbranded, but this is made in the same factory as Chanel or whatever, Armani, or whatever it might be, with the implication being that you get the quality but a much more reasonable cost. Now, because they're not boasting this is Nike, this is this, and I would have thought they could potentially do better, perhaps. Maybe if they tried to push their offerings as legit offerings, look, these are good, we make them in the same factory as this, and and it's still good. I think that there might be some, there may be some mileage in that.
Yeah,
But yeah.
I think that is
um
interesting.
yeah. So I mean, are there any other points you wanted to make from
No,
today?
I think just rounding up on what you said in the end, it's just there is a probability that such influencers or companies might do a bit better, but then it's just thinking about what the consumers really want. Do they pay for
Mm,
that branding, or do they pay for the quality? Because if
mm,
customers do pay for the quality, then do they have alternative markets away from China, maybe India or
mm,
all of these other places as well?
mm.
So it's
Yeah, yeah.
just opening up. to all of these things, because the same thing, the same manufacturing capacity. I always think of India and China as competitors in their manufacturing capacity. So it's just the
Yeah.
goods that have been produced for so many years in both of these countries. They now have an equally open market, but then maybe Americans might be more trusting of one or the other. So it's just, it's really interesting. I think both the stories, just to see the effect that it's going to have. It's really fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay then. Well, look, I mean, obviously, I'm just off to buy some Hermes, gear. Obviously,
Lovely.
yeah, I'm just going to leave
Add to
here
your
now.
collection. Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
love that.
definitely. Why not? Why not? Anyway, but thank you very much for being on today.
Thank you.
And thank you very much, everyone, for listening and watching, whatever. And I hope you have a great day, whatever you're up to. And yeah, thank you very much. Bye.